Welcome back to another episode of Lead the Standard. I'm Kelly Taylor, and today we are diving into a topic that I think a lot of us can relate to, going from quality manager to quality leader, and the 5 steps that nobody tells you about. We are basing this episode off edition 77 of our newsletter, so please feel free to jump on LinkedIn or our website to check that out. Now, today we are going to explore the 5 levels of the quality leadership pyramid and how each one of those builds on the last to help you grow into an impactful quality leader. Now, as always, I am joined by Jackie, who's going to walk us through the essential journey from managing a quality management system to truly leading it. Hi, Jackie.
Hello, Kelly. We're here again.
Now, I love this topic. It's all about taking things to the next level, which we love to do, and going beyond that technical expertise into areas like strategy and credibility, etc. So I suppose my first question today is, what inspired you to create this 5-step model for quality leadership?
Yeah, I actually had to think back to that as well and look at my Lead the Standard to see, what was I thinking at the time? And I think where I was going was that when I first started in quality many years ago, decades ago, obviously, I was super keen. I probably, like a lot of people listening or watching this, I went and did a lot of courses and training, etc., to really learn about what ISO 9001 was talking about and what it all meant, I guess. And of course, when I started my first quality manager role, I was keen to apply, what I learned technically from the standard. But I think soon became clear that, and maybe I didn't realize this until I was there, if you know what I mean, but you're actually a quality leader, and you're actually a quality leader rather than just a quality manager if you want this system to improve, to prosper, to be this amazing tool or framework within a business. And we don't get there straight away. So that's why that pyramid that I created, it starts off at education, but it ends at credibility. And I'm not saying you've got to jump. You can't jump to credibility. That's impossible. The pyramid is more about showing you the steps, and it's okay no matter where you're at. So if you're still at that education stage and you've completed some training, then you then move to the next step, and you'll get some guidance from someone that does have that experience, and so on. So you're going to get the best out of the system, the business, and the people when you sort of hit that leadership through to credibility stage. And it does take time. So that I sort of came up with that pyramid structure. Yeah, when I was reflecting back and looking at how green behind the ears I was, I had a lot of enthusiasm and passion, but I sort of knew the technical part, but I had a lot to learn about how to get people along for the ride.
Yeah.
So I think that's key to this. And I suppose, that's the background as to how on earth I came up with this. Does that make sense?
I like that you made it very clear that you cannot jump from education to credibility straight away. I think that's a lesson a lot of people could, should, and probably need to learn. But yeah, I think we need to be realistic in our expectations of our career pathways and journeys.
Yeah. And especially, and I'm basing that on my first experience with quality. Possibly then, if you branch into other standards and you've built your credibility in quality, and then you move into, environment, OH&S, information security, because of your background, you might be able to jump a few steps, but you've still got to build that base with that sort of technical knowledge as well. So,
Yeah.
it's essentially a leadership role, and you can't get people to come along with you by, what did someone say the other day? I've got it written down. I'm going to say it. By punishing and enslaving.
That doesn't sound like somewhere I'm really keen to find out about their workplace culture, really.
No, I thought it was a brilliant analogy or comment. They said that the quality manager wasn't there to serve and protect; they were there to punish and enslave.
Oh my god.
So I thought, no, that's not what we're here for. We
No.
are here to serve and protect.
Yeah. I feel like we're talking about a whole different career suddenly, but
yeah, well, possibly.
Yeah.
It's a great social. There's a great social post in that one. That's why I've got it written down still. So, sorry, that was my background.
Yeah.
But I guess, as usual, you sort of want my short answer, right?
I would
You
love
knew
one.
that's what I was going to say. Yeah. So the journey, I guess, to becoming an effective and maybe productive quality leader, I'm going to use that term, it does follow that clear progression, and there's 5 essential elements or steps within it. So each level builds upon the one, before it, and it creates that foundation for quality leadership. So it's a structured approach. So it ensures that the growth is supported and sustainable, that there's sort of a development process. And of course, it can loop through as well. There's continual cycles of improvement within it. So it could be education, mentorship, loop through to education again. So it maintains that active leadership while we're still learning and moving through building systems and working with people. So those 5 steps are education, which is our foundation of our technical knowledge. Then I've built in that mentorship, so it builds on that education, but it's got that practical support for us to apply that knowledge. Then, of course, it shifts to leadership, and that's a focus on our own personal development around leading others. Then we move to strategy. So that allows us as quality leaders to, I love this term, forward focus. And I'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. And it's all about creating that long-term vision. And then finally, all of that builds onto our credibility. So that's sort of everything all comes together. And this is where we demonstrate our expertise, but more importantly, we've built trust at that point. Okay, and by building trust, that's when we can get people to come along for the ride with us.
4 things in there that I love. I love that we're looking at a forward focus. We're not circling back, and all of those late 2010s catchphrases that we're all so sick of and overused, overworked.
What are they?
There's a few. I'm sure we'll have a couple pop up.
Okay.
We'll get there.
That seems too long ago for me. I
know. Anyway. All right. So let's break them down.
Okay, cool. So the first level in the quality leadership pyramid is education. So education is the foundation of our quality leadership. It all starts here. Okay, we need to gain that technical knowledge and understanding of what, the standards are talking about. And I know I'm talking about quality here, but this will apply to any ISO standard. We need to understand the principles, the standards, the methodologies, what those requirements are. And normally this is through some sort of formal, stressing, recognised training. So you might get, a certificate, certification, something that confirms that you have actually done a recognised training competency or qualification. And it supports that you have this fundamental, I guess, understanding of the standards that you are working in. It's really quite that simple.
It is that simple. I'm struggling how to expand on that too much, but I do think the importance there was recognized. We can all jump on YouTube and watch a couple of videos and go, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. But that doesn't help with your credibility down the track. You don't have that you've got the skills and knowledge. And look, the YouTube is a great learning source, but in the workforce and when you are wanting to become a leader, you do need to lead by example. And if you want your team to have a clear and, as you said, and not just said, emphasized, recognized qualification, certification, etc., you do need to make sure that you are working with appropriate training providers, etc. So that could be tertiary level, Exemplar Global, RTPs, TPEX. I'd probably lean a little bit towards the latter. Nationally recognised training organisations, all those sorts of things. Come to ATOL. That ticks all of the boxes in my head.
Yeah. Sales pitch there, Kelly.
Yeah, well, look, I couldn't not do it, but it is important. We see it so often, though, that people do come to our customer service team and say, I've applied for this job, or I've just done this course and I was told this, but now I've gone to become certified, and so that I can lead our internal team, or I can do third-party certifications, but I've just discovered that training that I have completed isn't recognized or suitable for this third-party certification body. This last week, this government department required particular things. So again, the reason you emphasized recognized is because there is a cheap option, but that cheap option will probably require you to do it twice,
redo
and spend more. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Sure. So yeah, look for that in this industry. Exemplar Global recognition, but obviously if you're maybe in the NDIS path or NHVR, is that what it is? They look for lead auditor skill set, so RTOs. So so that education, and Kelly, you mentioned our YouTube channel is also great to learn about that education level, and it really does support our training as well, but you do need that recognised competency, that certificate. So that's the absolute first step.
Yeah. Absolutely agree.
So the second level in the quality leadership pyramid, I put mentorship. So obviously this mentorship is building on that educational foundation, because we all know that when we do something, we learn something, we do a training course, it's sort of that knowledge, okay? And then the next step is applying it, right? So this mentorship level supports you to learn to apply that knowledge that you learn. And you do that from experienced people that have already done it. Okay. I absolutely had mentors in the early days. So, where I worked, I had a consultant that helped me to apply what I'd learnt at that education level. So, this level helps to translate that theory into practice.
I think there's a point that you made there, and I'd like to refute it a little bit. And
Yep.
you said that you have mentors at the beginning, and you had mentors at the beginning of your career. We've been working together for 9 and a bit years, and I know that those mentors are still part of your life and your relationships and your career. So don't think that once you've got your education and your mentor and you move on to step 3 that you drop your mentor, because you've been doing this for a little while, and those people are still involved in your certification journey. You still, some of them are retired, some of them are not. You still communicate with them, bounce off them, but you've also grown that peer network community group as well. So don't think of mentorship as just step 2 or just the beginning of your career.
And it's ongoing because
Yeah.
there's 2 things. So your mentors could change. Like I still have mentors, but
Different
not
mentors.
necessarily in the ISO space, more in the business space. I have peers in the ISO space that we learn from, and have hours and hours of great conversation because we all love what we do. So the key thing with that is there's always a level of mentorship.
Yeah.
No matter where you are in your career, they might change. And also, and I don't know where I talked about this recently. Oh, maybe in the webinar this month, I talked about sometimes the mentee
becomes the mentor.
So the student becomes the master. And I particularly talked about Caitlin, a consultant that I've been working with since 2018. And the very first, I think, 6 months that we worked together, I basically had the standard and I'd go through, okay, Jackie, I want to go through clause 8.3 today. So I go, okay. So I'd go through clause 8.3 and she'd take all these notes. And I reckon we did that for 6 months. And then it was just this year, probably 6 months ago, we realised that, I was going through some changes within the business and starting some new areas, and realised, she's actually helping me. Like, we're peers now. So those relationships can change as your mentees grow as well. Oh, Kelly, we talked about this under active wisdom.
We've talked about it quite a few times.
Yeah.
It does apply.
Yes.
It does pop up quite frequently. You've just reminded me another Caitlin story. Apologies. And again, Caitlin's a really good example of that education that we were just, education's at the bottom, not the top. And please do feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but Caitlin, we do forgive her now, but Caitlin didn't do her education through us. Caitlin did that through I believe it was a not recognised training provider. I can't recall. But that's how you two came to working together, was that she hadn't got that right, inverted commas, quotation marks for those people listening, that right education, or the correct education, and she had to go seeking out. And luckily for her, she fell into your network. But again, a really good example of having to recap and redo all of those things again.
Yeah. And it's always a good add-on, even if you do a recognised training course.
You want
it's
that
just
help
it's just the knowledge. Like, it's like, now what do I do with it? And again, you and I have talked about now what, because you finish your education level and it's like, see you later. And it's like, so now I've got to figure out what all this means for me in my world and at my work. Who's going to help me do this? Or am I just going to, make it up as I go along? And you could be completely off track.
Yeah, there's a few different examples of, that education to application.
I like that term.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
I stole it from your script.
Really?
But yeah, I think there's a lot of things as we continue today. You'll see how all of these things really do, as we've said, they're the things that people don't tell you, that do make all that difference.
Yes.
Which let's move on to that next important one, because I do feel that is
absolutely
where we're at.
Okay, so the middle level, the third level in the quality leadership pyramid is leadership. Ta-da! At this level, the focus actually shifts from you as an individual, because we've talked about your education and you being mentored to apply it. Now it's moving away from you to you leading others, bringing them along. I was going to say pulling them, but you don't want to pull too hard. It's like, let's come along, together. So this is where you start to develop your skills around guiding and leading your teams, influencing like interested parties, and really embracing that change management within the business and supporting, the workers along the way with that change management. Okay, so at this stage, you've got the knowledge, you're being supported to apply it. So you've sort of achieved those areas, but I think it's sort of like, when you learn to drive a manual vehicle, like car, and at first you're really concentrating on the clutch and the accelerator, and you're really having to focus on it, and then now you hop in one and you just drive. You don't even think about the gear changing, because it's just become a habit. I'm moving my feet up and down and changing gears. That's what I'm thinking this is like, because you really move into this leadership mindset wholly when you don't have to think so hard about what on earth the ISO standard is talking about, what is required, what does it mean. Like it starts to become second nature. You're comfortable. If anyone asks you anything about what the requirement is, you don't need to go and do your research and study it. You're just changing gears, out of habit now. You don't have to think about it. And when you've reached that stage, then you can just focus on your driving. There's one less thing you have to worry about. And that's sort of similar to moving into this leadership aspect of the pyramid. You've done that hard work. You're starting to just be able to drive and enjoy it. Okay. So, you need to get to that point to really become that quality leader.
These things, so that was an analogy I was not prepared for, but it actually worked well. There's a few things in there that we've talked about previously, and again in the newsletter, and I think they're key words that we need to highlight here as well. So you've said that we're moving from personal development to leading others, but that's about developing, guiding, influencing, supporting change, and supporting is the words there, was inspiring, motivating, and value. You talked about they're pulling others along for the line. We've talked about push-pull leadership before, but it is about leading by example, getting excited, living the quality mantra, I guess, and doing that along the way. That ease and that natural make people see and understand that quality is not something that has to be done as well, but quality is something that can and should be business as usual. It is really easy to apply quality to your business as usual practices. It doesn't have to be a forced thing. And by showing people that, that's when you start to lead, because they're not being dragged along or pushed into it, they can see, oh, that's actually really easy to do. I don't, like, you're doing it and it's not a problem and it's not
Yep.
a challenge. So think about all of those other different ways and things that you can use as to inspire, motivate, communicate. And I do like the value of quality initiatives in that space, because it is.
Yeah. And I think sort of where you were heading, I know, like you talked about, quality is part of the business. That's actually a good segue to the next level. And I know you were using it in the context of, leadership and working with, people within the organisation to, support them on this journey.
Yeah, create that culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a whole other subject I'd love
Last
to get
week's
into.
episode.
But I think that's a good segue to that fourth level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the fourth level in the quality leadership pyramid is strategy. So this strategy thinking level, what I was thinking with this is all about alignment with the strategic direction of the organisation and the business objectives, that forward focus as well. So when you're at this stage and you've brought your people along with you, you're leading, it sort of, you can see the bigger picture when you're at this stage. Okay, so you can see the bigger picture of the standard that you're working in. You can see the bigger picture of how the clauses all interact and relate. You can see the bigger picture of what it means for the business or businesses that you're working with. And you can see the bigger picture with the people within it. So you're sort of seeing everything all at once. Again, using that, learning to drive a manual vehicle, you're enjoying, you might have a convertible, you know how to change the gears, you don't even have to think about it. You've got the wind blowing in your hair and the sun shining on you, and it's, you've got things moving so nicely, and you're looking at it holistically. Okay, and this is where you really start to see amazing changes within a management system at that organizational strategic level.
Thinking about muscle memories and driving along and something, whether I've been very distracted now. I'm Route 66 or Great Ocean Road. I don't know. We're somewhere not at my desk right now. It is mid-December. So it's actually, I'm going to segue backwards with this one, because we've talked at the last few weeks about how we're going through our strategies and everything at the moment, and we're bringing the team along for the ride. So it's not just Jackie in the driver's seat, me in the passenger seat. We've got a whole combi full of ATOL team members at the moment. And again, we don't have a quality management system, but we live the quality philosophy, and we do have a management system. So it's not certified, but that's how we drive the business.
Our systems are certified to Exemplar Global and
yes,
national
but
standards.
We don't have ISO 9001 certification, but we still apply those principles and all of those things to the business. So we did exactly this part of the strategy. Jackie and I took the team together. We had that leadership present, but we let the team become part of that strategy to see what their thoughts were, how much we had communicated this, kind of to gauge where we were at as well as leaders. And it was really interesting that when we put everything on paper and the team was able to see that full strategy, how much of these things that they thought were priorities and important were part of our business as usual, or our business as usual expectations. So it really did kind of give us an understanding of, are we in the team on the same page, which we were, thankfully. Are there things that we can do better? Are there things that excite the team? How do we apply that to our strategy? All those sorts of things. And again, it was sharing that with them and knowing what our bigger picture business goals were, understanding theirs, knowing the data that we had. So I'm just rehashing all of those things that you've just talked about. What was sustainable, what wasn't, where the gaps were, what we needed to do, what were those improvements. But again, once we had it on paper, what our priorities were, and we mapped out, okay, well, this is our H1 goal, this is our H2 goal, and these other things here, they're business as usual, guys. And they was going, oh, yeah, okay, so we are living, breathing what we say we're doing. And these are the key things that we want to focus on and continue doing. So making sure that strategy, I suppose, what's the word I'm after? Like sense checking? Is that what I'm trying to say? Making sure that as a leader, the strategy isn't just about you. It's about, as you've said there, the organizational success, and making sure a good way to check that as a leader you are fulfilling your role, your goal, is to do that sense check with your team in a strategy space. So
that's actually a really good point. And also, like, while there was a lot of business as usual stuff that came up, there were some ideas that you and I hadn't thought of.
Never thought of. There were some oh poo moments, pardon me. Oh, we've looked at that a lot over the last however many years, and thank you for your fresh eyes. We didn't see that. So yeah, but again, it was because of the leadership that we've instilled in the team that they felt comfortable doing that with us and sharing their thoughts and being open and honest and transparent with us.
And I think a key thing with that, I know you and I both said it, I think I made a smart aleck comment in the days after, is that I tried to be as quiet as possible. Because
it's so hard.
Yeah, like I know sometimes I did have something to say, but as a leader, you do have to be conscious of shutting up sometimes and letting other people provide their feedback. Because as a leader, if you speak first, it's sort of, what's the word, influences the other's thoughts. So it's always good just to be aware to shut up and let other people come up with things as well. And it really then drives that conversation.
And look, I feel that this is a really important thing to talk about, and I'm sure we can have a whole separate episode about this. But yes, you did make a smart aleck comment afterwards that you didn't say much. But that was the first time that you and I have been in a room together for half a day, and it's probably the quietest I've ever heard you. And I don't think, again, it was my first time leading the team in that sort of environment. I've always participated and always been really keen to get my ideas out. And it was really hard to not do that. So we made sure that we spoke last. And if we spoke, we didn't tell our ideas or we didn't give our opinions. We asked questions to clarify our understanding or someone else's suggestion or feedback, or we asked questions that would drive further discussion or kind of steer the conversation to an area where maybe the team hadn't quite considered that we were keen on. So again, we weren't putting the idea in their head, but we were asking, well, how do you think we could do this? Or is this something that we really want to do? Or can you explain to me a different way that you might do this, that, or the other? So again, it wasn't your idea is wrong, our idea is right. It was all about just get your ideas out, help us build this strategy, and help us understand how you're connecting your ideas to the overall business strategy. How is that going to help not just you and but also our customers, the team, our community? So really involve them, but listen, I think, is really the core thing there.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Listen, understand. Yeah. I have to say I did have a really comfy seat, so I might have been like falling asleep.
Yeah, I was going to. You have been known to fall asleep in a meeting before. Um,
No, that's a
one.
very good point. Okay, so the fifth and final level in the quality leadership pyramid is credibility. So you could say it's the summit of the pyramid. You've gotten there. So reaching the summit, obviously, sticking the flag in represents, I suppose, sort of that building culmination of all of those levels that we've talked about. So that education, mentorship, leadership, and that strategy level. And now you've got that credibility. And I think I mentioned earlier, like this is where trust is at its highest. Trust then builds, helps, supports that influence. So that influence on change, that influence on bringing people along for the ride, engaging them in the process. Like this is the ultimate pinnacle where you can enter the room and here's an idea and people go, oh yes, let's do that, and they're all on board, or they've got, oh yeah, good idea, but what about this? And you have this back and forth. You can just throw something in and then it builds with the team. You don't have to do all of the thinking. It's just those ideas and go, hey, throw it in there, and everyone contributes. This is the ultimate pinnacle where you want to get and stick your flag in.
And you can see how that ties back into what we were just talking about. That was kind of the first step. Just start to let them know that you are genuinely comfortable with their insights and everything, because you're not going to again go from leadership to strategy to credibility instantly. You have to demonstrate that you are genuinely and authentically interested in what that team has to say to gain their trust, for them to think of you as a credible leader. So again, we said at the beginning, you're not going to go from education to credibility overnight. You're not going to get your high school diploma and suddenly you are the best ISO leader in the world. It's going to take time, but each one of these steps is a step, and there will be time at each stage of the pyramid.
Absolutely. And also something to add on to this is, I mentioned it earlier, that it's actually a continual cycle. So even when we've reached that pinnacle, say now, we all know ISO 9001 is being reviewed. So, even this morning, I've been doing some reading about, okay, what are these proposed changes? We need to understand this and help people to also understand it. So I'm going back to that education level and mentorship. So, learning and speaking to other people about what they think it all means. So it's a constant cycle. You don't just get there and then stop learning. It's constantly changing. And if it's in an area that you love, it's not extra work. It's like it's of interest. It's like, oh, is that what's happening? So then, at this stage, I'm at the education and mentorship level of the new 9001. I'm certainly not at leadership, strategy, or credibility. I have credibility in other areas that might help with that, but I'm certainly not there with this new standard. I've got stuff to learn, so I'm okay going back to those foundation levels and then pulling myself up. Did also the same thing. I wrote down this morning AI standards. So there's some AI standards. So that's what 42,001, that's what I want to do. So I'm going back down to that education level, so then we can bring it in. So it's constant. It's a great industry to be in for us to constantly learn, especially now.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I think another way that we can look at this, and I am going to share this again because I think that this is a really good way to explain it. So apologies to our listeners who can't see what's on my screen because I can't see it either right now.
Me.
So I think for those watching this back, and look, if you're not, I'm hoping that I can describe this well enough. But this is a pyramid, and each stage, the tip of that pyramid is a triangle, a pyramid. Within that credibility, you again can slot this whole pyramid into that single triangle. You within that credibility stage, as you've just said, you've got that education, mentor, leadership, and strategy again. It's kind of like the matrix. It's the pyramid in the pyramid and the pyramid in the pyramid. So again, it is a continual cycle, but it is also at each level there is that pyramid is embedded into that again. So I think, yeah, when you hit the top, if you're stopping at the top, then I don't know how long you're going to be sitting at the top for.
Good point.
Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah. That credibility, it's not something you reach and your job's done.
Yeah.
You have to constantly work at it, constantly, to maintain that trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great point.
Yeah. Thanks. I try.
Okay. Will I do a recap?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. I'm sure you all remember, but just to summarise those key points and maybe more so the 5 levels of that quality leadership pyramid. The foundation is education. So that's the foundation of your technical knowledge. Then the next level is mentorship. So that, what did you say, Kelly? Turns education into application. I knew it was 2 vowels. Turns education into application. Then the next level is leadership. So that focus shifts from yourself to leading others. Okay, it focuses on other people and what you can do to bring them along for the ride in a positive way. Then it moves to strategy. So as a quality leader, you'll see the big picture. So the work that you're doing will align to the strategic direction of the business. So you'll have that big picture of of the standards, of the clauses, how they link, of the business systems, of the people that are within it. And then finally, that pinnacle at the top of the pyramid is credibility. So that's like a culmination of all of those other levels, as Kelly mentioned before. But then the quality leader is building trust. Okay, this is where that consistency, that's my favorite word, consistent, comes into play as well. And as we mentioned, things don't stop when you reach this credibility stage. You need to stay current in your area of expertise, and you'll do that full cycle again and constantly and persistently throughout. Okay, so as always, before I hand it back to you, Kelly, I do like to close with stay curious, another favourite word of mine, and always lead the standard. So by staying curious and leading the standard, you'll continually find new opportunities for your own growth and excellence in your career.
Jackie, that is a wrap for today's episode of Lead the Standard. As we saw Jackie breaking down that quality leadership pyramid, it really does give us a lot to think about. As you see, there's so much that's in that simple thing that in hindsight is really obvious and apparent, but it is the things that nobody talks about. So thank you for sharing those, Jackie. So one thing that really did stand out for me again was it's not just about climbing that ladder, it's about growing ways that genuinely impact the people around you and the organization as a whole. So yeah, really good insights there. Just navigating your way through those challenges. Again, credibility is absolutely not something that you can rush. It is built over time, consistency and results. So really that's what sets the quality leaders apart. If today's conversation did spark something for you, again, I encourage you to take a moment and reflect on where you're at in this journey. Jump back, as I said, to LinkedIn or our website, edition 77 of Lead the Standard is what we've been talking about today. But next week, we are talking about why quality leadership is the career path you never knew you needed. It's going to be a really good one to wrap up our recording sessions for the year, so please don't miss that. Thank you again for joining us. As Jackie said, stay curious, keep leading the standard, and we will see you again next time.
Thanks, Kelly. Bye.
Bye.